So one of the big topics that we hear all the time is a lot of our clients are leaving their 9 to 5, but they need that income and they need it quick. I want to talk about brands that can cash flow or break even very quickly. And I think, one thing to start off is, for me, I always tell them, assess your expenses. What does break even look like in this business model, right? If you need that return right away, one, you're probably not putting in a lot of capital because you need that to survive on. And two, I wouldn't step into something that, month one, you're on a huge lease, you're on a bunch of fixed expenses. I'd look for something that the expenses come after you have sold something. Sure. So, talk about that. What brands are you putting your clients into that can break even quickly?
Yeah. First I'd look at some home-based models, right? You mentioned having a lease. Your lease and your employee expenses are going to be your two largest expenses in any business they have. So if you can, eliminate the lease and, start out with, minimal employees, or maybe even just run it yourself. That's where I start, when I'm looking at, when I'm working with clients, that those are some of their qualifications. That's my starting point.
What brands does that bring to mind? Where are you putting those kind of clients? What brands out there that are successful and are good investments, right? Because even if they have low cost, but they're not going to make you money, right, still not a good option, yeah, sure, right? Yeah. So what brands?
Sure. So one of them that comes to mind for me is Hallmark Home Care. So big referral business, but you're cash flowing pretty much instantly. Donut Envy, it's one of those brands that has such a low investment, especially when you set your funding strategy up the right way, that you can essentially, your first few events, you could be cash flowing pretty quickly. So those are two that instantly come to mind.
Yeah. Curt, I know your brother's in Best Choice Roofing. I love that one because everything in there is based off of you already made the sale, right? Yeah. You don't pay for shingles until you've already sold the job. Yep. You don't pay for, install until you've already sold the job. Yep. You don't pay commissions or any payroll until you've sold the job. Yep. So I love those variable things.
Yeah, for sure. That's a model that, to your point, you can start out week one, already selling 3, 4, 5 jobs. And we see that, we get that feedback from our investors that, we keep in touch with and we follow. Love that model.
Yeah. I think another one, and kind of a category as a whole, is you see a lot of these youth enrichment ones.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. And, soccer stars, tippy toes, those kind of things. You have a space and it's not yours.
That's right.
That's what I love about
That's
it.
That's the sweet spot.
Yeah.
About those.
Someone else is paying that space, but you're getting to utilize it. You don't really have a marketing expense because you're going to the school director and they're selling out of it. So you got some time invested in there.
Yep.
Right. Your equipment, soccer stars, probably 6 soccer balls, an iPad, and 2 cones. Right. That's pretty good.
Don't forget
right?
the cinch bag.
Yeah, cinch bag, of course.
Yeah.
Can't juggle all of them.
Right. Exactly.
So, those kind of things that there's not a lot of fixed expenses. Mm-hmm. Also, there's not a lot of moving parts. So you can get ramped up very quickly.
Sure.
Yep.
Sure.
Some of those low cost, or fast to break even brands, in my mind, I look at those. You've got to have that hustle, though, right? You've got to be the one that's going to go grind, going to knock on some doors. You're going to go to the daycares for soccer stars and tippy toes. So keeping that in mind, right? If you look to hire a GM, again, that just raises up your expenses. So this, I love those fast break even brands for those owner operator people.
Yeah, great point. Because especially, you're leaving your source of income to go do this thing, and then you're putting someone else to run it. Now you're sitting on the beach drinking Mai Tais. That's what everybody thinks.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That doesn't happen.
It does not happen like that.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, you're definitely going to have to make that time investment. But that time investment that you're putting into the business, you're going to see that fast break even sooner because you are investing your time. So yeah, that's something to certainly look at.
Well, and I think those are the two levers of business and honestly economy and life sometimes is when you have the time but you don't have the money, you got to spend the time and then get the money. Then when the money starts coming, you can pull that lever back and get that time first. But if you need that fast ramp up, You need to go spend the time.
Yep. That's where I was in my very first franchise was Express Employment. And the model was 20 in-person cold calls per day. So to your point, I didn't have any money, but I had the time. And so I would go, I did that for about 2.5 years, 100 sales calls per week. Those are some good business models though.
Yeah. And it teaches you a lot too.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of, you're burning the boats. Your family is, on your back a little bit, and you got to go produce.
Yeah.
And you got to know about yourself and be self-aware enough to know if that's going to motivate you or crush you.
Yeah.
Right.
And to be honest, it seems like every day that flip-flops for me. I remember being in my first business and calling my poor mom and being like, oh my God, what did I do?
Yeah.
Right. But man, you learn, you break even. Then that, that fear drives you a little bit at the beginning. And
Big
then,
time.
okay, this is working.
Yep.
And I'm pulling back and I'm pulling back.
Right.
But with anything, it's a grind in the beginning. You got to know that going in.
And making sure the franchisor has a good roadmap for you, right? There's one thing to have the desire and the grit to get through that day to day, but you really need that solid playbook to get there.
Yes. Yes. And know that solid playbook supports somebody like you,
Right.
want to operate it the way you want to operate it, right? If you are coming in owner operator and every single one of their other franchisees runs it semi-absentee with a manager in place, do they know how to support you? They have a great business model, but does it support you?
Yeah.
Right? And vice versa. If you want to eventually work your way out of that business, have people done it before, right? That's the advantage of being in a franchise is you see the future a little bit, right? You're not hedging the whole thing, and be open and honest with that franchisor. This is the way I want to run it.
Yep.
And if they're a good franchisor, and that's partly why we vet franchisors, is it's not good for them or you if they lie and go, oh, you can absolutely run it like that, and they can't, because you're going to end up on their closure list. That's going to be a red flag for any investors going forward. You're going to hurt the reputation. They don't want that either. So be open and transparent through the discovery process and say, this is what I'm looking to do. Does that work in your model? And who can I talk to on validation that has run it like this with my background, similar market, right? All that kind of stuff. Don't reinvent the wheel.
Yep.
It's a
That's
great-
the key
it's a great
too,
point.
being able to validate that business so that going in that there is somebody that's in that business who's doing it the way that I envision myself doing it. And so if a business validates pretty well, then I think you could be pretty confident that this is going to be a good fit for me. You want to look at things like what kind of time. Those are the kind of questions that you'll ask in validation. How much time are you putting into this business? Because, hey, I'm looking to break even fast. Are you putting in 40 hours a week, or is it something that you're kind of doing on the side? So really get a good feel in validation on how much that time investment existing folks are putting in.
Yeah. We send you a list of validation questions.
Yeah.
And those are, I don't want to say generic, but they go to everybody, right?
Yeah.
They're very detailed, but they go to everybody. There's 100 on there. There's no chance you're going to be able to ask 40 franchisees 100 questions.
True.
Or else by the time you really get to the answers, that market's sold, right? So we got to narrow it down to what's important to you.
What's important to you?
So find 5 questions on validation that are important to you. And if it's break even, time, what did you do differently to make that work? And ask those. And ask those every time.
Sure.
The amount of times that I have clients go, well, that one franchisee in North Dakota answered it once. It's written in gold.
Yeah.
You're talking to
Yeah.
business owners. You're talking to people. Everybody has different
Sure.
perspectives. So ask the same questions and make sure it validates multiple times. Then take that and talk to the franchisor and say, hey, half your guys are saying this and half your guys are saying this. What's the difference? And if he says, well, these guys were salespeople and they crushed it. They ran it the same way, but these guys had this certain skill set.
Right.
Reflect on yourself and go, do I have
Do
that
I
skill
have
set?
that?
Absolutely.
It's a good question. You've got to ask yourself, if they are putting in that kind of work, do I have the wherewithal to put in that same measure of work if I want to get the same thing out that they're getting out? So, yeah, good point. There was one thing that I wanted to say, sort of tying validation into breaking even fast. So, that's one of the questions that you want to ask how long did it take you to break even? Somebody who's in a similar market as yours, how long did it take you to actually break even? And then, like you said, Mike, ask that question over and over again to multiple franchisees.
You know, big reason why people look at breaking even is because they have set expenses, right? So they know, hey, my family's mortgage is this. So before you hop in and figure out break even, you got to figure out your household break even and understand where there's fat to be cut down and all that kind of stuff, and then go and look at the business opportunity. So that's a big thing, is how much do you need? When do you need it, right? So, you know, discovery process for a brand is, 3, 4, 6 months before we figure out the right one. And then you sign, then there's training, and if you're finding a location, all that kind of stuff, you got to go figure that out. And then in some of these, seasonality, right? So if you're putting a fencing company in North Dakota, probably shouldn't do it when there's 6 feet of snow on the ground, right? Stay in your job a little bit longer, right? So you got to understand the dynamics of when is the optimal time to launch. And again, that's why you're buying a franchise, is you're not the first one. You're going to ask the northern franchisees, and you're going to ask the franchisor, when should I launch?
When's the best time to open?
Yeah.
When's the best time? Yeah.
And understanding what that ramp up looks like. When does cash start going out the door, right? When do I start marketing before I'm in sales, before I'm in that kind of stuff? So understand how cash flows inside of that P&L of when does the marketing cost, when do I collect from the customer, when do I actually fulfill the services, right? We represent Wallaby Windows in a lot of deals, and it's a 6-week lead time before you sold it and your windows come in.
Right.
So understanding cash flow is really important, and if you don't understand cash flow, that's fine. That's why we exist.
Right.
And that's why a franchisor exists. You can go in with a passion, follow their process, and find some profit there.
And that's one of the best things about a franchise is you can, depending on the industry, you can really get a good feel for when you should hit break even historically, right? If the brand has 200 franchisees and maybe it takes, 20 fences installed to hit your break even point, or, 32 clients billed in a month, boom, there's your break even. So a lot of these things, you're going to be able to fall back on some historical data from the franchisor. So again, we always say franchising, a lot of these businesses we could probably start on our own, but being a part of a franchise just gives you that head start, gives you a little bit more comfort in knowing, hey, 6 months out, if I do X, Y, Z, I should be at a break-even point.
Yeah, and that's the point of our process. One of our core values is no surprises, right? Of if that break even is supposed to be in 6 months and it's 18 months, that's not good, right? So we got to really assess and go in with a game plan, right? I always tell people our job is to find the holes in the business or the risk, and doesn't mean a steal killer, but we got to go in with a plan, right? And planning, hey, I should break even in 6 months. Let's plan for 8 months, right? Things always take longer and cost more than we assume, right?
Yep.
So don't go, well, the best franchisee ever did 6 months. I know nothing about fences, but I'm going to be the best fence guy and do it in 60 days.
Give yourself some time.
Be realistic,
That's
right?
For sure.
So if you need help, like figuring out what your household break even is, our founder, Ryan Zink, did a great video on that, how to replace your income with a business. So check that out.